In this video, I'll show you how I replaced my 1.5 horsepower Pentair pump with this nice new quiet pump of the same rating. The one I bought is from Pool. I got it off Amazon for $309. What a deal. And it looks just like this. It comes with everything you need, fittings and wires and all that other stuff. I'll show you how to make all the plumbing fittings that I had to put together. I'll show you how to make all the electrical connections. And I'll show you how quiet the thing runs when it's finished and what a great alternative it was for the Pentair pump. So I hope this helps you with your project. Let's go.
That horrible noise is my pool pump. I guess the bearing's going out after 20 years. Whew. So this is a Pentair 1.5 horsepower pool pump, and over the years I may have had the wet end up here replaced once, but I had this motor replaced a bunch of times. They'll do it again for $540, but the impeller's been through a lot of stress. It's not pulling vacuum quite as well as it used to, and so I'm just gonna replace the entire thing. To replace the whole thing is $1,200, so I'm gonna do it myself. This is the 1.5 horsepower pump. There's its model number. Has a brand new lid and basket and all the things I need. New wet end and a new motor, much smaller than the Pentair, whether that's good or bad. It also came with the threaded couplings and the glued on couplings that are going to be able to attach to the suction side and to the output side. So I'm going to try and fit that into the space where the old Pentair goes. My plumbing is absolutely a Frankenstein design that has been cut and recut and refitted over the last 20 years, so I'm going to just get rid of most of it. There's another video on my channel about replacing the housing for this cartridge filter that I have right here, and the housing comes with a threaded slip connection, but I can't replace that. It's glued on right here, so I'd have to buy that entire thing again, take it off, and that's more than I want to do. So I'm gonna leave this piece of the Frankenstein, cut it right here, and replace all this section, because you can see after having been changed a few times, it's not exactly square. It's kind of bent a little bit, and I want this to be straight. One of the places that I have the worst leak problems is when people come out and lean on this like it's some kind of support bar, and it leaks either at the pump, which I think it's doing right now, or somewhere along the line. So I'm gonna slice it right here. I'm gonna replace this entire U section, and I'm gonna put the new section right into that new Pro pump after I cut this one out of the way. I guess that's what it sounds like when the bearing is failing. Listen to this. Not very nice. So the first thing I'm gonna do is kill the power. I used to have this mechanical timer, which a lot of people still have. It's fine, but I wanted a timer that I could turn on and off with my phone. So I put in a 220 volt wireless timer out here so that I can start and stop that on schedule exactly when I want it to, because this thing loses track of time every time the power goes off for some reason, and this other one doesn't. But I have a kill switch here, which is just a, listen to this. It's dying breath. So this thing kills the power to the pump, but I'm not going to settle for that. I'm going to go outside. Notice that it killed the power here. I'm going to go back to the breaker and shut that off too. Inside my breaker panel, I have 220 volt breakers for the pump and for the water filter. I'm just going to kill them both. That eliminates all the power out here. Nothing's on. So I think I'm safe, but I'll still use my non-contact voltage tester just to check those terminals, because I've been lit up by 220 before and I don't want to do it again. Since the pump's been running, it's still trying to drain the water back to the pool, so I'm gonna let the air in my filter so the whole thing will drain out. I'm gonna start by getting rid of the electrical. The external ground strap is back here. Then the fitting on the side and the back are both 1/4 inch. Inside the back of the motor, this is what the wiring looks like. It's pretty simple, and all the fittings are either flathead screws or 1/4 inch sockets. Since it's a 240 pump and I'm replacing with a 240 pump, it has 2 line loads which it doesn't matter which side they connect to, and then one ground. So I just gotta pull those back out of here and the electrical will be free. Okay, I got a cut here and here at least with my Sweet DeWalt hacksaw. And then this I should be able to unthread because it's a threaded connection. So I'm gonna get to that. That's free, and I should be able to unthread this, but I can't because it comes around and hits the pump. So I'm gonna cut it off where I can unthread it by hand. I gotta cut this connection. I don't like cutting this one because it's very important. It's been there 20 years, but I gotta get rid of the old pump. So let's go. Okay, I cleaned up the concrete pad, got rid of the rocks and weeds, hauled out that heavy Pentair pump, and here comes the new guy. Very convenient carrying handle. That's the difference, because that other, my waterfall pump, is the same as my original pool pump, just gets a lot less use. And that's what the new guy looks like by comparison. So first thing I'm gonna do is clean up this old pipe. Glued coupling. The threaded coupler will go right here. Amazingly, they appear to have the same form factor as far as the outlet pipe, the inlet pipe. So when I dry fit that, you can see the tolerance between those two joints right there is really close. Like it's good enough as it is. It doesn't need any shimming at the bottom of the pump or anything like that. The threading section goes right over it. Put it in at a bit of an angle. You can see like it's not level, if you can see that guy on the video. So I'm gonna take this opportunity to loosen up this threaded fitting, straighten that pipe out, and make sure that the entire new bridge that I get is right angled. I have a pair of gigantic Home Depot channel locks, which are great for this. So using the unions is not my favorite way to decide where the edge is, but that bubble's about straight now. So I'm gonna tighten it back down right there. Now I gotta clean this mess up. I know all this junk will just go down in the filter and get filtered, but I'm gonna try and minimize the amount of crap I drop in this pipe. I sure do like my grinder better than my hacksaw. Now I can yank this bad boy back up. Ha. All that trash didn't get in there. So I'm gonna dry fit this together, but if I push it on really hard, I'm never gonna get this back off to be able to glue it. So there's about 3/8 or 1/4 of an inch gap between the top of the pipe and where it's gonna stop. So I'm gonna account for that as I put the rest of the pipes together. I don't wanna find up putting this together and realizing that I used up my last opportunity for this threaded fitting that's down at the bottom of my filter. So I'm gonna give it just a little more pipe that I need for one more repair option. Good. So with both those pipes level, the fittings on the top ought to slide into each other nice. So I got the 5.5 inch section. I got the elbow, fit them roughly together. So you can see they're sitting at nice, about the same level right now, and that will all correct itself once all those successive fittings compact down to their actual height. So I can actually have the luxury of measuring from the inside. I can put the tape measure right where the pipe is going to fit into the fitting. Check the other side and it says 19.5 inches inside, right up to this flange right here where the pipe will stop. So I cut the next one at 19.5 inches and it almost has to work. So I cut this guy to 19.5. He's going to fit right in between those two. It's always tough to decide which connections to make first, so you don't wind up with an immovable joint. But because I have this fitting here, which I can unthread, slide left and right, and it has a gasket on its end that will mate up against the pump, I'm going to build the entire thing out of glue solid so that it starts and works its way all the way around. This will be the last fitting to be connected. Hopefully it'll slide over the pump, I'll thread it down, and that will complete the circuit. Okay, it's time to start gluing. From this point forward, almost every move is for keeps, so we got to get it right. I'm going to use these guys. For better or worse, this is OD all-purpose PVC cement. I tried to find one that had the longest work time because most of them say very fast set. I don't want it to set fast. I need some time, but these are the two that I'm going to use. I hope they work out and that nobody thinks they're the worst. If you know of a long work time PVC cement that I should have used instead, please put it in the comments. Okay, this is the slip fitting from the pump that goes to the drain on my pool. Standard purple primer. Doesn't look very purple anymore. Making sure I got a lot of glue on this because this pipe has been abused, cut by me and everything else. Don't forget to put the ring fitting on before you glue that on or you're in deep trouble. So it says in the instructions that you're not supposed to put Teflon tape on this. I have Teflon tape and I could put it on there, but it threads on really nice. And see how it's got this gasket on here? I think that is supposed to take the place of any leak stoppage that you could do with Teflon. So I'm going to follow their instructions and trust that I can unthread it and seal it up with Teflon later if it leaks in any way. Fits very nicely against this metal gasket, if you will, fitting at the edge. They said to go hand tight and then another quarter turn, but that's snug right there. Those two fit together perfectly, just like the old Pentair pump's height. Hand tight, a quarter turn. That fitting is secure. The purple primer smells like it always smells, but mine has lost its color. So again, if somebody out there knows if this stuff isn't working once it's lost its color, leave it in the comments. I'm hoping that it does. Still stinks exactly the same. All right, I got to get these two together, so this is important. Got to stop talking. Ring fitting is already on the plumbing, don't worry. So once again, it says no Teflon tape. Threads on beautifully, hand tight, and a quarter turn like they said. This guy's gonna be my very last connection, and he's redoable. So I'm gonna put him in place just to make sure that all the other fittings go in the right spot. The union first. A lot of glue around this guy because he's the old pipe. Been through a lot. All the way down and hold. Just for reference. So now, down inside that pipe, that gap that I was talking about from the dry fit is gone. It's already seated as far as it can go. Now I'm going to put this guy on. I'm going to glue this joint and then build the cross section in case if anything goes wrong, I can cut this one down Push and hold. This is the only pipe I trust because I was able to measure the interior dimensions, so I'm gonna glue it to the elbow first. Push and twist, hold. So the good part about this is I can bring this guy out of the way, finish up all the fittings, and in the end, when he twists at the bottom, it's going to still mate up and let the threaded fitting create the seal. I'm gonna aim it at the other pipe and hold it, knowing that I can turn it as I need from this point. So you can see how I missed it. With all of my careful measurements, I'm still off there a little bit. You can see looking inside that the tape measure says that the flange is 1 3/8 inside of the edge of the fitting. So when I put this on there, it's gonna drop 1 3/8 and I'm gonna miss it. This guy's gonna be like that. And so it's level about there. I'm gonna take my Sharpie, mark where I want the fitting to stop, and then I'm gonna cut it off 1 3/8 inch higher than that. So I missed it by about that much. It's fine to miss it long. You don't wanna miss it short. I know this isn't the smartest way to use a grinder, and it will eat you alive. If I were to show you my wrist, I have a huge scar right there when I hit myself with a grinder. Watch out. Now this elbow, when it's leveled, should be at exactly the right height. I have the luxury now, so he's the sweet spot. I can unthread this, use that freedom to drop this down onto the pipe. And all I gotta do is make sure that I get back to there before it sets. Twist and hold, but now I gotta make sure that it's straight up and down. So don't let this set unless it's vertical. Before I go any further and get myself trapped behind this plumbing, I'm going to go back and connect the electrical. So I'm going to disconnect all this stuff for just a moment so it's not in the way while I attach the wiring. Well, the wiring is kind of different. Not in the type of connectors we have. We still have 2 loads and a neutral wire and an exterior ground. But the difference is that all this stuff runs into the fiber pool junction box here, and it has external cord like this, and my prior Pentair pump came out of a piece of conduit from the electrical panel and terminated in these wires, and then had one of the fittings which allowed you to screw it into the side of the pump. That's not going to fit very nicely right now, so I'm going to run this guy where this pump used to be up into this junction and then into the box. Open up the electrical panel and I pulled out the 2 hot wires because they go down that pipe in the back, way back there. They pop out down here. So I yanked out the black wires from the very back, and the ground wire just runs from right there around to this grounding terminal block. And so what I want to do is, here's the wire from the new pump, and it comes with these screw terminals on it. I don't know what good those are, but I'm going to be cutting those off in order to wire nut them into the wires that are inside the box. So I'm going to cut off all these terminals now, and I'm going to use my ground wire, which I did not yank out, as a drag wire. And I'm going to tie these on to the ground wire. I'm going to pull it all through this conduit. I'm going to keep it inside this sheathing because the UV is just a lot, especially on a black wire out here. So I'm going to keep running it through the sheath, and I'm just going to have it run right up to this and protect it from the sun. Well, I decided to make these ring terminals worth something. So I took the ground wire. I'm going to loop them all over the ring terminals, and then I'm going to use the ground wire to pull them all back, placing the tension on the ring terminals and hoping that the three of them together will draw this all the way through. Now I'm going to use a piece of AC ducting tape to hold it all together and to make sure that there's not an edge to get caught as it goes through the tubing. I'm going to hope this feeds up in there. So, looking at both sides of this, I'm yanking on this ground wire, and it's pulling my electrical cable inside the conduit. And there's the black shielding on that cord. And then here's what's happening at the beginning. It's pulling in there, staying inside that conduit. And now the conduit is sliding all the way up toward the junction box on the fuel pump, and it should keep all that stuff mostly out of the sun. Haven't decided if I'm going to do anything to try and protect the junction between the box and the conduit from getting bugs and water in it, but we'll see. Now I got to get in here and connect these wires, which have the ring terminals attached to them that I don't care about, to these two wires, which are the load wires, and to this wire, which is the ground wire. This guy came with a sticker attached to the power cable that tells me that the green wire is ground, the blue and brown are both load. So that makes this guy my ground wire. So I'm going to attach him to this, which runs over to the ground block. There's no reason to go in there and try and connect this to ground block as a stranded wire. That's going to be a pain. And then I'm going to take this load wire, connect it to the brown, this load wire, connect it to the blue. All right, to do this, for better or worse, I'm going to use my Wago connectors because I bought a bunch of them and I never find a good application for them. I take my Wago connector, lock open the levers, line up the two wires I want to connect, and then drop the levers. Snug, snug. This is a moment when I'm really glad that I left the plumbing unconnected before I did the electrical, because I'm literally kneeling where the pipe would be. This guy is the external ground, and it's a threaded, a stranded wire. Not my favorite. And we have this beast from the old pool pump, so I'm just going to use it instead. I just want to give a quick shout out to all these honeybees that have not stung me while I've been sitting right here in their midst, and I ask them to continue their goodwill. The last thing I got to do is connect this fitting. It's the only unglued piece left in the system. And then tighten down the one down there, the threaded fitting, and it should be done. Well, wouldn't you know that after all that, my iPhone overheated in the sun just as I was gluing that last fitting. But here's how it comes out. That elbow worked out great. Having pre-built that entire U, it worked perfectly, and it all threaded right in there. So as I put that fitting together and glued it together, I immediately went down and hand tightened that threaded fitting while I held that one in place so that it couldn't creep. Wiped it all up. Everything looks really good. So now I'm just waiting for it to dry enough to power it up. The electrical's done. Looks pretty professional. The pipe looks a ton better than it used to. I'll start it up and show you how it goes. And let's hope for no leaks. See you in about 4 hours. Well, I had to wait till after dark for all the glue to dry to make sure I wasn't going to create any leaks. But I turned the breaker on. Pump immediately started running correctly. I'm using my Wi-Fi 220 switch back there to turn it on and off with my phone. I primed the pump, and you can see the water inside the housing running just great. It's really quiet. Listen. That's a ton better than that screeching Pentair that I had. And my big bridge that I put up, there's no leaks anywhere. No leaks around the mounting housing. Sorry, all this water here is just because I primed the pump to get it going. But no leaks here. As far as I can tell, everything is sealed up just right. So thanks for watching. I hope that helps you decide whether or not to do this, and I'll leave some notes in a year or so about whether or not it's still doing what it ought to do. Take care.